Here's another thing you'll notice about the French crowd, particularly, and the Spanish crowd. It's those two particular fan bases more than any others at the moment, which is it's not even anymore, Dom, that you have to diss them to get them mad. If you compliment them in the wrong way, that's just as bad as a diss. So because I had the gall, Dom, it's actually a very interesting point. You won't know this because it's a Counter-Strike related point. I'll make it very briefly. Basically, what made me think about this was in Counter-Strike in the last few months, there's a team, it's actually the team that won the major like a year and a bit ago, the Rio one. There was one where they were called Outsiders, but it's because of the sanctions. Virtus Pro. It's a Russian team. And the way they play in Counter-Strike is almost anti-Counter-Strike, Dom. They play super passive. They save all the time. They run the clock all the way down. And basically what their style is, it's just really annoying. Like, even if you're better than them, it's really annoying. So, because it's frustrating, you can imagine they can grind out wins doing this, or they can sort of get wins when they shouldn't, or teams like sort of know what you're supposed to do going in, but because they play so unique compared to other teams, actually people go like, fuck, I thought I had him. And it's like, there's a million people with that story of like, but I should have won. Like, I was in position. And so the point I made was this: I never ever, Dom, blame the Virtus Pro team for playing that way, because it gets results. They actually do good wins as a result. I always blame the other teams. But if I look at the wider scene, like the top 10 in Counter-Strike, I always say this: I want a team like that to be like the 8th best team. I want them to be a dark horse with a unique style, and it's more like they test and gatekeep the top teams. And if you're like the top team who can beat them, then you get to pass through and be the champion. But if that team is 2nd or 3rd in the league, Dom, we're in fucking trouble, because they're not playing traditional high-level, ideal, optimized Counter-Strike. So you can see, obviously, even if you don't know Counter-Strike, where I'm going with this one. This is why I made this tweet about BDS, because the joke is, I actually will say, even though I don't think the BDS players are significantly better individually, a bunch of them have played better than I expected. I actually thought this would be the split. Adam got exposed. The opposite, probably the best top player there. You look at them as a team, like, they've all pretty much played well. Even the Ice Guy's somewhat integrated. He's not crowd shot, but he's played well within his context. He clearly doesn't have the same carry role. But you look at this team, Dom. What my point is this: if this really is the 2nd or 3rd best team, and right now, guys, they're not only guaranteed top 3. I think they're going to be 2nd. I think they're going to make the final and they're going to play G2. Right? If this is the 2nd best team in the LEC, then the LEC is in fucking trouble. And I saw that when Nook came to me. By the way, Nook is a fucking bozo, if you don't know, guys. I know the actual coaching staff in BDS. I know some of the things they do in that team and who he is. Now they pick his champion. But he doesn't, as usual, like a bozo player. If they don't like you, they decide you can't know anything about the scene. You can't have any connections. And so they do that thing where they try and punk you publicly. And they're like, hey, what am I bad at? And this is where you just see that this guy is incredibly well coached, because he doesn't have a fucking 2 brain cells to rub together, Dom. Like, he actually tried to imply for real that BDS has like really good laning. Like, everything was good, basically, according to him. Like, his logic was like, what? So individually you're having a problem in laning? It's like, yes, all those things. Because I'm actually not dissing you. What I'm saying is your team's doing everything you could with what you have, but you just shouldn't be 2nd. It's not your fault. It's actually the fault, by the way, of Fnatic, fucking Karmi Corp, Vitality, SK Gear. It's not your fault, but it's bad for the league. Because I agree with what you said, mate. The problem they have is this: what they do at the moment is awesome. Like I say, like a punish style. Other teams get in these positions. I think we have the lead on them. It's fucking a dragon fight, but they just lose. They inexplicably lose. They get out team fought. Here's the obvious problem, Dom. Do like almost happened last year and pop these motherfuckers in the Mad Lions spot at MSI, and they are going to get murdered, mate. How the fuck would they even get to an objective against BLG or Gen G? Like, they wouldn't even, I'm not exaggerating, they would get absolutely murked. In fact, the worst thing that could happen to them is they get that spot as this team. Like, I think they're in trouble, mate. I'm amazed they actually, of all the things to get mad at me at, I'm amazed on that one, because I'm sort of complimenting you for all the things you are, and I'm just pointing out what you aren't, and then you're going, I'm actually all those as well. It's like, sit down, Nuclear Int. Your coach wouldn't even say that you're bozo. Come on, give me your take on this.
I mean, the main thing is, I understand what Nook was saying, but the way he just phrased it was wrong. Like, they have good laning. Like, their players can all lane, but the laning phase is bad. Like, he didn't make the distinction. Like, he said laning phase, and laning phase is the phase of the game, the time period. It's a measurement of time when people are laning. It's not the actual laning itself. It's how long the people normally lane within the game. So 0 to 14 is by definition the laning phase of the game. And that is where they are weak. Some of them can lane well. I think Nuck on his champions, he can lane well. He can play Azir, Orianna, whatever. I know laning to anyone. Yeah, I mean, he just plays his lane like he's gonna be like fine up CS. He won't like die. He won't like lose flash when he doesn't need to. But the way that they play together around lanes that are winning is almost non-existent. They don't have any solid early game plan. When you watch top teams play, when you watch T1 play, when you watch BLG play, and you see how they play around their winning lanes, they make it so the enemy team doesn't get to play the game. Like if you have a pushing bot lane, the example I always give is BLG has this very common set play. And what they do is they play one of the strong early bot lanes. They draft heavily, they prioritize heavily for bot lane in draft. They play a bot lane that has push, and then they time the wave crash with when their jungler can invade enemy bot side. So Shun will do 3 camps, invade enemy bot side. BLG will crash the wave at the same time that Shun has the ability to invade. Shun will either get the bot side camps, or if the jungler has already done the camps, then he has no camps on that side of the map. They will force the enemy jungler out of that jungle, and then they will just 3v2 harass the bot lane, dive the bot lane. They'll just make the bot lane unplayable for the enemy bot lane. And this is something that they can replicate every single game by having strong early jungler and pushing 2v2. BLG, or BDS, has no set plays like that. They can draft lanes that win, but like the lane will just like play on its own. The jungler will be doing his own thing. The mid will be doing its own thing. Like they don't have any connectivity between the lanes, and they don't have any ways that they use their jungler to really make it unplayable for the enemy, which is why they end up behind so often. So I do think the other parts of their game are strong. Like their drafts are in general good. Like they have really drafts where they
coach team, mate.
Yeah, I mean they have good drafts. I mean, it depends on what you consider coaching, because I consider like early game really important in coaching, but they have good drafts and their setups have always been extremely good. They get to objectives. They know where to ward. They're there on time. They don't make mistakes. They are very good at reading when somebody is out of position or figuring out how they need to win the situation. If somebody needs to mark a flanker, when they can engage, if they should start the objective, if they should let the enemy team start the objective, all those things are really good. And that's why they win so many games. And for the record, like, yeah, I mean, I would probably, if I had to choose between being good mid to late game or only good early game, yes, of course, I would choose being good mid to late game. But the problem is, the reason that I agreed with you, and the reason why I'm like, yeah, I don't feel great about watching them, is early game matters a fuck ton, and you won't be able to just out set up teams that are better than you internationally. Even if you might have slightly better ideas of setups, they're going to be so far ahead that they're not going to let you do that. You're going to be playing on an even playing field when it comes to everyone's knowledge in the game at those points. So when I'm watching BDS, I mean, yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. It's not good for a team that has bad early game consistently to be one of the best teams in the league. We've seen it before, and the comparison that I made was 2017 TSM. How often did you see 2017 TSM just have better players? Like they had Bjergsen double lift at the time, and they're just showing up to an objective. They're down like 1 to 2K. They out team fight at the objective and they win the game. Like, I don't like watching teams like that, because I feel like without a certain level of early game dominance, especially in your region, right? Because you got to consider that LEC is a weaker region than LPL and LCK. So if you're not able to play early game versus like Rogue, like you're losing early games to Rogue, you're losing early games to Giant X. What the fuck are you going to do when you play against even teams that are like Hanwha Life? Like, let's say Hanwha Life made it to MSI, or Hanwha Life makes it to Worlds and you play against them, or you play against, like this weaker version of JDG. You're still going to get fucking murked. Like you need to be able to play early game at a better level. And if they improve that, sure. I mean, they could be the best team in Europe. Like if they had like one of the top early games in Europe, I think they would be the best team in Europe. But it's just not there right now. And I view that point as really important, which is why I made the tweet where it's like, not only did I do the eye test of actually watching all the games back and being like, okay, I formed this opinion when I was watching the games. Was I incorrect? Like, let me just rewatch it again. Yes, they lost almost every single early game. But then also, you look at all the stats, and all the stats are indicative of a team that is weak early game as well. So it's like, when you have both things, it's like, what are you good at early game? The individual laning is the only thing that I could say. And I don't view individual laning as that valuable when you as a team don't know how to do anything with those individual lanes.
Normally I say that. The reason I never look at Twitch chat is I actually think it's sort of like, it almost makes even people who read it stupider. It's like it collectively brings the whole, it's like essentially you bring the human spirit down by commenting stupid things there. I've found the one rare time ever I might have actually gained some value from reading Twitch chat, because I saw an idiot attempt to take what I just said, an intelligent person's nuanced analysis, and after they spit it through the fucking sort of like cheese grater that is their mind, this is the shit, the utter tepid nonsense that came out the other side, and it perfectly anti-frames what I said in a way that'll make my point. So the person said this, Dom. They were like, well, the reason why they're upset is because you're saying the only reason that they are good is because everyone else is bad. No, that's not at all what I said. If you listen, what I said is this: they are good for XYZ reasons, nothing to do with other people. Things like they can win fights from behind. They actually don't even need to get an early start. They draft pretty well. They have the best top laner in fucking Europe. They have an above average mid laner. Shio's probably having his second best split. The Ice Guy knows how to do his job and not be crown shot. Labrov actually seems to continue to improve. His champion pool's good. Vision control. They seem like a generally well coached team. But what was the reason I said I complained? It wasn't that they are bad. I said it's because they're at the top. The problem, I even said it in the fucking statement, that I want them to play identically, but be 4th or 5th. Then it will mean the top teams in Europe are really fucking good by inference. Instead, they are actually at the top because of how bad the other teams are. In part, but if they played shit and the other teams did that, they wouldn't be at the top, would they? So you've completely missed it as usual. If you're someone like that, mate, don't even attempt to pick up a fork. You will end up with one eye. Just use a spoon. Stick with the spoon. That is all. You were raised with the spoon. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.